Hi, Michael Gorman, Oregon State University, where I teach physical activity classes that deal with fly fishing and fly tying. Today we're going to tie the beadhead veiled assassin. It's a fly used for steelhead and trout when they're in the mood. Anytime they're dining on steelhead and salmon eggs, this is a good fly to use, especially when the water is high and off color. Again, with this particular fly, I like the TMC 2302 in a size 6. There's a nice bend, deadly point on it. I've slipped an orange bead on here. I'll use either a 5/32 size orange bead, hot orange, or a 3/16 size. I'm going to put a tail on this, so I'm going to use some dyed rooster saddles. I've got a nice chartreuse green and a hot pink. I'm going to extract a few fibers. Once I lay down the thread on this, near the rear of the hook, tie to a point where I'm just barely past the point of the hook. Take the thread forward a bit. As far as thread color, a hot pink or fluorescent red, two excellent choices. 6 or 8 fibers. And the tail, I like to be about as long as the gap of the hook. The gap, again, is from the point to the shank of the hook. Lay that on my side of the hook and it rolls up onto the top. If I need to, I'll roll that so it's dead center on top. A few strands of the pink and then a few of the fluorescent green fibers on top of that. Trim out the excess. Thread comes forward, laying down a thread base on the entire shank. Then back towards the rear, but not quite to the tail. Get a few inches of medium-sized fluorescent green chenille. Lay that right on top, close to it. Few turns of thread. I go back as far as where the tail has started. Run the thread forward. 2 full winds. There's 1, there's 2. That's all I want. Don't want the green in any way to predominate. 4 or 5 winds over, a few winds in front. Trim it and go. Now with 3 or 4 inches of fluorescent pink chenille, moving the thread towards the orange bead at the front. Start wrapping it there, back to the green butt portion, forward again. Try and keep the chenille densely packed, almost run 1 wind back into the previous one. Like the dense look. Leave a little bit of room at the front. You can see I'm not all the way to the orange bead. Wind over it. Wind in front. Trim it. If you're worried about the security of the fly, go ahead and put on a 1/2 inch right there. I'm going to put a wing on this fly. The wing is kind of unique. I use a little bit of mylar tubing. Mylar tubing is like this. This is a pearlescent color. It comes with a core. Extract the core. So now I've got a hollow tube. Okay. So I've cut a bit of this tubing. I'm going to lay it on top of the fly. I want it to extend back about the length of the hook. Lay it in place. Wrap the thread over it. Trim that fairly closely. Roll it back on top if necessary. One thing you want to note, there's some room here, because I've got a couple of more items to put on. Eventually I'll unravel this tubing, but not yet. As with the other flies, I'm going to use some egg yarn. I've got maybe 1.5 inches of this in length. I'm going to try and envelop the wing and the body a little bit with this material. So I'm going to lay it on top. With the balance of the yarn, I'm going to split it, pull it underneath the body of the fly. So I split it, bring it around the bead in front. So I'm trying to envelop the whole body, have it encased with the egg yarn. Take my gun cleaning brush with its wire fibers. I'm going to comb that veil, get it smoothly wrapped around the body. Okay. For the final step, I'm going to take this pink saddle hackle. You notice that I've stripped the fibers, the phyllo plume off the bottom of it, left a portion of the stem so I can secure it to the hook. My preference, because this has a slight bend to it, is to take the concave side of the feather, face it towards the rear of the hook. I'm going to hold the feather on edge, hold it underneath the hook, wrap it right in front of the body of the fly. 4 or 5 winds over the stem, pull the stem back, 4 or 5 turns in front. Slip in a 1/2 inch, pull it tight. Trim the feather stem. Last step. If the feather's long enough, you can use your fingers to encircle the area right behind the head. These feather fibers, kind of spread them out. If the feather is shorter, it's really helpful to have a hackle pliers to do that. In this case, I can use my fingers. Hold that fiber tip straight up, feather tip, wrap over it. I like the fibers to cup over the fly, to be swept back. So to do that, you can either break this out like I did, or you can cut it with your scissors, and then to get all these fibers laid back, pull them back with the first 2 fingers and the thumb on my left hand. Form a head, and right behind the bead, try to keep it smooth and fairly small. Get those feather fibers swept back. Okay. Thanks for joining me today. For more information about fly tying, flies, and fly fishing, check out my website, gormanflyfishing.com.